Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary. Welcome to Step Back Tonight for today, July 13th, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan. How you going? How's chat looking tonight? Hey. Everybody looks excited to be here, I assume. Yeah. Let's get this party started with a little bit of a change in new thing I'm trying. Welcome to this thing having notes. Just realize that this is gotta be the most like I'm a history major type thing to do. So yeah, welcome to Step Back Tonight. I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays from 12 till 2 on Mondays with Mia Mulder, and on Tuesdays from 7 to 9 with just me. So what you're watching right now. I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. I'll even write that in there. Look at this. Ready? Ready for this? There we go. And yeah, you get to watch me type. And my Patreon, if you want to support that, which, you know, up to you, is patreon.com/stepbackhistory, where you can help me keep doing wonderful content like this twice a week, plus all of the YouTube videos I make, for as little as 84 cents a month USD with a yearly subscription. You get videos early. Patrons have been watching my video now for, you know, a few days, so gotta say that early access is paying off when the sponsors are slow getting back to me. This video will probably come out on Wednesday or Thursday, but yeah. If you have Amazon Prime, you can help this channel also at no extra cost by giving me a Twitch Prime subscription. You get them included, one per month in your Amazon Prime subscription, and I get a small kickback. So if you do that, hopefully that'll be helpful. But if you don't use it on me, Amazon gets to keep your money. So use it on at least an independent Twitch creator. Help make their day, you know. Get the Bezos bucks or whoever the new CEO of Amazon is. I don't even remember anymore. But get that evil money to somebody nice. As for content to check out, my latest video is on Ruby Ridge, Waco, and the Apocalypse, which is my latest video in the White Power series. I believe it's episode 7 of the White Power series, if not 8. And it is my most popular, it's my most successful video of 2021 so far, as of less than an hour ago. So, pow! And my next video I have titled The Most Important Political Issue of the 21st Century, which is a video about climate refugees. So, I'm sure that'll be joyful and bring happiness and love to everybody's life. So, yeah! It's probably my darkest video I've ever made, which means it's going to get me a bajillion views. Other things, too, if you want to submit a question, you can go to stepbackhistory.com/streamquestion. I'll put it in the chat. I have some questions for tonight, but I don't have a lot, so I'll definitely need some. And Step Back, you're my favorite anarchist. Hello, doggy. Sorry. I don't know why that's where my brain went. You're my favorite customer. Hello, doggy. But yeah. Probably get some questions tonight. It'll be really fun. And also, this channel has been fucking on fire this last couple weeks. Yesterday, I found out happened to be the... Gosh, I think it was Step Back hit the... Yesterday, while I wasn't paying attention to my computer, I was like, oh, looks like maybe I got a bit more views than usual. That's nice. Then I look back on it and realize that yesterday was the best single day view record in the channel's history. And that a video I made in the fall of 2020 is now in my top like 5 or 6 most popular videos of all time. So, good stuff. I've never had a video get to 100,000 views that fast. So, yeah, that's pretty good. I am currently 3,500 subscribers away from 100K, which feels fucking unreal. So we'll see. I seem to be getting like 200 to 300 subscribers a day. So it's like blowing my mind that this is happening. So who knows when it'll happen? I could be seeing that play button this summer. Getting a little optimistic. What video was that? It was part 1 of the White Power series. That's the one that's been taken off. But all of that was a preamble to say to you that there's probably some new people here in the chat tonight. And so if you are one of those new people, please make yourself known in the chat. We are a wonderful and loving stream community, and people who are regulars they get to know each other. So come on in. The water's fine. It'll be good times. And yeah, somebody actually remembers the 10,000 subscriber mark. Man, that was like in October of like 2016, I want to say, that I hit 10K. If not October of 27, no, it wouldn't have been October of 2017. Would have been October of 2016. Because I remember that the first time I went to the YouTube space with when I qualified with, because the YouTube space in Toronto, when it existed, RIP, you had to have a minimum of 10,000 subscribers in order to use it. And to use it, you had to, quote unquote, unlock the space, which meant that you had to take like a kind of like introduction course to using the space. And I did that. I did that. I went to that, and I remembered I was still living in London at the time, so I actually like took a trip to London to do this. And so and I moved here in the summer of 2017, or I moved to Toronto in the summer of 2017. So must have been. So yeah, that's a really, really long way to say that it has been 5 years since I hit 10K, and I somehow got 90,000 subscribers from that. Was that thing you said about catastrophizing directed at you? Not like specifically, but definitely you were in mind. You're not the only person who does that sort of behavior, but you are the person who I see do it the most often because of the streams and stuff. So, yeah. But it's definitely like a common thing to be out there of people, counting their chickens before they don't hatch. And I thought it'd be neat to be said, because my next video is, as I said, my darkest video topic probably to date. So we'll see where that goes. Anyways, maybe we should get into some content, eh? I got some things to cover. I got some news. I went and looked at the news. I thought, like, hey, that's a thing I could do on this channel, right? I could read the news, and we could talk about it, because I know that every time I don't talk about the thing that's going on in the news right this moment, then I get 1,000 questions about it. So I thought I might as well get that, worked up right at the top. So first news is on Cuba. I think that's a pretty easy one to get into. Everybody knows that Cuba's having some sort of protest or civil unrest of I don't know, and I to this point, I think that one of the big things that we need to talk about when it comes to Cuba is about the United States propaganda, the embargo, and about how it's kind of impossible at this point in our history to really judge what's going on in Cuba objectively to really get good, unless you have like people on the ground there really working it out. The reason is because the United States has a pretty distinct interest in making sure that that Cuba is never successful. They escaped from American colonization when Cuba broke off and became its own country, or broke off and became communist. It was basically like Las Vegas before Las Vegas was Las Vegas. Like, it was a place where Americans went to do drugs, gamble, and basically abuse the workers who were there. But on top of that, the more important thing is that Cuba's main economic activity at the time, and still is, but is sugar production. And the United States companies own something like 80% of Cuban sugar production. Like 80% of the companies, it might even be as high as 90% of Cuba's biggest section of Cuba's economy. And by biggest, I mean like overwhelming, huge percentage. Like tobacco and like tourism don't even come close to sugar. So when the Cubans had a revolution to get the brutal, because like there's so many things that happens when you have this kind of situation. When you have foreign companies growing cash crops, you have less room being used to buy food or to grow crops that people need to eat, which means that food gets scarce and more expensive. And at the same time, you end up with situations like how because U.S. corporations are buying up land to grow more sugar, land becomes more expensive, which makes it harder to even subsistence farm. And you have lots of people who have no land, no jobs, no job prospects, and their only choices really are either to be like, essentially like borderline indentured servants on these plantations, and especially it was doubly bad for black Cubans who were double exploited in these kinds of situations. Or you move to the city. And the city, your only options are to, shuffle cards for rich people. And then on top of that, the U.S. installed dictator Batista was notoriously corrupt in that, like, he once decided to stop being president, so he just, like, left and took, like, the Cuba, like, basically took Cuba's entire treasury with him to the United States, where he lived in, I want to say, Florida. And then he just came back a little while later, and then he was like, I'm going to be dictator now. It's fucked up. Super fucked up. So there's that. So, yeah, the what's it called? So the Castros, Fidel and Raul, had a revolution. They overthrew the American installed dictator. They they kicked all of the American corporations off of their land, and they did land redistribution. And they focused on being a sustainable communist country. And the United States put trade sanctions on them to try, because it's a small Caribbean country, it's an island, so they have to rely a lot on imports to make a lot of things work. And so they did a blockade and a whole thing that basically resulted in them being pretty desperate for even the basic necessities of life. Now, when the United States is trying to punish trying to punish a small country back into being a capitalist country, or back into basically just submitting to American dominance, really. And you do that in the 1950s, the Soviet Union starts coming around being like, hey, bud, Americans giving you trouble? Want some help? And so the Soviet Union became friends with Cuba. And anyways, so the United States has had a policy where basically until this government learns to give up and resubmit to American dominance, they've been putting this blockade on. And yeah. But it does show that there is a explicit interest in making sure that any sort of dissidence against the government in Cuba is going to be blown way out of proportion, and we're going to get this sort of funhouse mirror lens look at whatever's going on. Not only because, it's kind of hard to get stuff on the ground out of Cuba, but also, like, information on the ground out of Cuba, but also because the United States, like, every major... Like, I tried to find, like, a story for this, and every major U.S. News outlet is portraying it like this. It basically, like, the same... Like, it's the same kind of shit that they do in Venezuela, right? They're going to try and use this to try and push a Juan Guaido to be the president of Cuba. Just watch. So, Cuba suffers... if anything, like, if the people are protesting because of, like, shortages of vaccines and essential supplies, it's because of the blockade. That's the only reason why Cuba doesn't have a lot of material things. They've been able to do fucking miracles with very little things. Like, notoriously, if you, like, go to Cuba, you would like, you can see that they can't get American cars, so they've just been, like, repairing cars over and over and over again, and, like, making them super last a long time, because they're working with what they got. And, like, even now in Cuba, like, almost every, like, piece of machinery and stuff like that, they've either had to repurpose Soviet technology or do something else with it. They have communal farms. They have one of the best healthcare services in the world. They may, and despite all of those, like, blockades and everything like that, they're some of the healthiest people in the world. They developed a COVID vaccine independently, and are sharing it with other countries. And, yeah. So there's that. And so what you're going to see is in this, like, funhouse mirror. Like, I'm at the point right now where I don't trust a single fucking thing that's going to be said by any corporate media organization about Cuba in the next few days, because they are entirely taking notes from the U.S. State Department, knowing that if they want any access to the White House, they can't portray this event as anything but negative for the government. So they're going to try to find a way to make it look as bad as possible. Kind of like how mainstream media covers Venezuela. So be very, very skeptical. What's this? Nothing suspicious going on here. We Cubans don't want the end of the embargo if that means the end of... Oh, yeah. Yeah. That does look noticeably sketch. So, yeah. When it comes to Cuba, keep your eyes open. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, though, because I think that following in this news story, we should also probably talk about Haiti. So, the Haitian president was assassinated last... Let me just get the article thing going here. So, the Haitian president was assassinated a couple days ago, and his assassins have been linked to former Colombian military members, and apparently currently are getting pinned on a Floridian businessman. So, yeah, here we go. Let's just do a little bit of a reading series, shall we? A physician, a church pastor, a failed Florida businessman who filed for bankruptcy. New details have emerged about a man considered a key player in the killing of Haiti's president, deepen the mystery over the assassination that shocked this nation of more than 11 million people as it faces an uncertain future. Keep in mind that the president of Haiti... was a U.S.-installed dictator. Just so you know. Just keep that in mind, because I think we're getting to the point where what happened is if I were to suspect anything, it's that he outlived his usefulness because he wasn't able to keep the lid. The government was, or the people were already turning on him pretty heavily. So, new details have emerged about a man considered a key player in the killing of Haiti's president. Deepened by the mystery of assassination that shocked this nation over a million people as it faces an uncertain future. Local authorities identified the suspect as Christian Emmanuel Sanson 62, a Haitian who once expressed desire to lead the country in a YouTube video. However, he is unknown in Haitian political circles, and associates suggested that he was duped by those really behind the slaying of President Jovenel Moïse in an attack last week that critically wounded his wife, Martine. So that's important to notice. So already the person who it looks like they're trying to blame it on has no connection to Haitian politics. Real fucking sketchy there. A Florida friend of Sanon told the Associated Press, this is just an AP wire, the suspect is an evangelical Christian pastor and also a licensed physician in Haiti, but not in the U.S. The associate, who spoke on condition of anonymity out of safety concerns, said Sanon told him he was approached by people claiming to represent the U.S. state and justice departments who wanted to install him as president. Neat. Isn't that interesting? I don't know how true that is, but this would not, the thing is, like, you know, be skeptical. This is one anonymous source, but damn if that isn't super sus. And like, if this turned out to be true, I would be not surprised even a little bit. So the plan was only for Maurice to get arrested, and that Sanon would not have participated if he knew Maurice would be killed. I guarantee you that, the associate said. This was supposed to be a mission to save Haiti from hell with support from the U.S. government. Echoing those sentiments was Reverend Larry Caldwell, a Florida pastor who he said worked with Sanon, setting up churches and medical clinics in Haiti in 2010. He doesn't believe Sanon would be involved with such violence. I know the character of the man, Caldwell said. You take a man like that, and then you're going to say he participated in a brutal crime of murder, knowing that associated would be would send him to the pits of hell. If there was one man who'd be willing to breach to help his country, it would be Christian. Haiti's National Police Chief Leon Chao said Moise's killers were protecting Sanon, whom he accused of working with those who plotted the assassination. Charles said officers found a hat with the logo of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency. Woo! 20 boxes of bullets, gun parts, 4 license plates from the Dominican Republic, 2 cars, and correspondence, among other things, in Sanon's house in Haiti. Ooh. The DEA hat's really like a little on the nose, don't you think? Um... 26 former Colombian soldiers are suspected in the killing, and 23 have been arrested along with 3 Haitians. Charles said 5 suspects are still at large and at least 3 have been killed. The US DEA official told AP that one of the suspects in Moise's assassination was at times a confidential source to the agency. Oh boy, okay. I have a theory about this. I'm not going to get too much into it, but yeah, oh boy. Told AP that one of the suspects in Moise's assassination was at one time a confidential source of the agency, and that the suspect reached out to his contacts at the DEA after his killing and urged surrender. The official said that the DEA and a U.S. State Department official provided information to Haiti's government that led to the arrest of one suspect and another individual whom it didn't identify. So this is so fucking sus. This is like multiple layers of the United States just scrambling to try and scrub any, like, it feels very, very, very likely that the United States did this and that they're trying to quickly, like, get their fingerprints off of it to say that they did not do this because they weren't able to just install the dictator that they wanted to get a U.S. friendly dictatorship back in charge, like they've done to Haiti for a good chunk of its history. So meanwhile, Colombia's National Police Chief General Jorge Luis Vargas said that a Florida-based enterprise, CTU Security, used its company credit card to buy 19 plane tickets from Bogota to Santo Domingo for Colombian suspects. Most arrived in the Dominican Republic in June and moved into Haiti within weeks. Okay. Florida security company, just named with a very generic name like CTU Security, which to me says mercenaries, which the United States does typically use for this kind of thing. He said Dimitri Arald, head of general security at Haiti's National Palace, flew to Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama in the months before the assassination, and Colombian police are investigating whether he had any role in recruiting the mercenaries. In Haiti, prosecutors are seeking to interrogate Arald as part of the assassination investigation. Charles said that Sanon was in contact with CTU Security and that the company recruited the suspects in the killing. He said Sanon flew into Haiti in June on a private jet accompanied by several of the alleged gunmen. Okay. Was Moise not U.S. friendly? I was under the impression he was pro-USA. He was pro-USA. The problem is that he was kind of losing touch with his people. Like, the Haitian people were protesting against him, and it was looking like there might be like a popular overthrow of the government if they had not done something. And this is a common thing. Like, if their dictator is no longer useful, they will just get rid of them and replace them with a new one who shows like, oh, look, things are better now. The thing that you guys wanted, the change has come, and that's just going to be another U.S. dictator. Like, yeah. Yeah, let's see. The suspects were told the job was to protect Sanon, but they were later ordered to arrest the president. Okay. Charles said that after Moise was killed, one suspect called Sanon, who got in touch with two people who believed to be masterminds of the plot, did not identify the masterminds or say if police knew who they are. Sanon's associate said he attended a recent meeting in Florida with Sanon and about a dozen other people, including Antonio Manuel Intriago Valera, a Venezuelan emigre to Miami. Okay. Another fun person who feels very asset-y. Who runs CTU Security? He said a presentation was made for rebuilding Haiti, including its water system, converting trash to energy, and fixing roads. Neoliberalism! Yay! He said Sanon asks why the security team accompanying him to Haiti were all Colombians. Sanon said that Haitians couldn't be trusted and that the system was corrupt, the associate said. He said that Sanon called for him from Haiti a few days before the assassination and said the Colombians had disappeared. I'm all by myself. Who are these people? I don't know where they're going, the associate quoted Sanon as saying. Sanon is completely gullible, the associate said. He thinks God is going to save everything. Sanon lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and in Florida, where he filed for bankruptcy in 2013 and identified himself as a medical doctor in a YouTube video titled Leadership in Haiti, in which he denounced the country's leadership as corrupt and accused them of stripping the country's resources. However, records show Sanon has never been licensed to practice medicine or any other occupation covered by Florida's Department of Health. Well, that very much fits the kind of people that they get for this kind of job. You'd think that often they would get someone who's ex-military, but this is oh man, some guy that they can probably lord over with some sort of financial thing. Makes sense. Sanon said in court papers filed in 2013 bankruptcy case that he had a physician and a pastor at the Tabar Evangelical Tabernacle in Haiti. He said he has stakes in enterprises, including the Organization of Rome, Haiti, which he identified as a non-governmental group, a radio station in Haiti, and medical facilities in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Okay. Fun. Okay. At the time of his bankruptcy, he and his wife reported an income of $5,000 a month and a home in Brandon, Florida, valued at $143,000 with a mortgage of more than $367,000. A federal bankruptcy trustee later determined they hid ownership of about 35 acres in Haiti from creditors. Oh boy. What a normal guy. What a normal guy who has no reason to become a corrupt dictator of a country on behalf of the United States. Florida shows Sanon started about a dozen businesses over the last 20 years, all of which failed, including ones that appeared related to medical imaging, physical therapy, fossil fuel trading, real estate, and veganism. Okay. Well, oh, there's more. Oh my goodness. Okay. This guy's story is like really weird. Okay. Let's get that shit out of the way. Sanon's arrest comes as a growing number of politicians have challenged interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph, who is currently in charge of Haiti with backing from the police and military. U.S. officials, including representatives from the State Department and Homeland Security, met Sunday with Joseph, designated Prime Minister Ariel Henry, and Joseph Lambert, the head of Haiti's dismantled Senate, whom supporters have named as provisional president in a challenge to Joseph, according to White House National Security Council. Okay, so this is them scrambling for Plan B already. Man, yeah, their coup fell apart so bad. I mean, they killed the president. And then they killed the president, and they were hoping that they'd be able to just install this random dude that they obviously have, like, by the nuts for, like, financial stuff, and put him as dictator of Haiti. And it's like, okay. But then, obviously, the government just arrested him, and they've been able to hold themselves together, and we'll see where that goes. And now they're trying to challenge the president of the country. It sounds very much in the U.S. playbook. The delegation also met with Haiti's National Police and reviewed the security of critical infrastructure. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that the delegation received a request for additional assistance. She said deployment of U.S. troops remained under review, but also under review. Oh, they're going to do it. And also suggested Haiti's political uncertainty was a complicating factor. They're going to need regime change. We need to liberate the poor Haitians. Yeah, for real. Oh, what was clear from their trip is that there's a lack of clarity about the future of political leadership. Oh, yeah? Joe Biden said he's closely following developments, adding, the people of Haiti deserve peace and security, and Haiti's political leaders need to come together for the good of their country. Wow, what a nothing burger line. Meanwhile, UN Deputy Spokesman Farhan Haq said Haiti's request for security assistance should be examined. The UN has been involved in Haiti off and on since 1990, with the latest UN military peacekeepers left in 2017. So, what a fucking wild story. I mean, I'm gonna be skeptical, because you never know what the truth is going to be in the long term. But I gotta say, this feels a lot like the U.S. planned a coup and it failed miserably, and now they are trying to very quickly clean up their mess, and probably scrambling to figure out what their next step is going to be. So that's fun. My reaction to hearing people complain about Cuba is kind of similar to my reaction to people complaining about the NHS. Yeah, this is bad, but you're complaining about it might lead to something worse replacing it. You know what I mean? I'm like reluctant to complain about anything the right don't like in case they use it as popular consent to destroy it. You're not wrong. Literally asking to please come colonize Haiti. Jesus Christ. Didn't the interim government of Haiti ask the U.S. to send American soldiers into their country? It sounds like it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Oh, man, what a story, though. I'm sure we'll see more of that in the days to come. This is just very early stories, All right, next up. This is a story that came up. This is some COVID news. Let's do some COVID news. So, I don't know if you guys know, but Canada has this thing where it has this policy of mixing vaccines. Like a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people in Canada have gotten either a Pfizer for their first shot and a Moderna for their second shot, or vice versa. And a lot of people who got AstraZeneca for their first shot have gotten a Pfizer or Moderna as their second shot. And the World Health Organization is now saying we probably shouldn't do that, but kind of more out of an abundance of caution. So there's a little video about it that we're going to watch. So there's that. So let's go watch this on youtube.gov.
It's a little bit of a dangerous trend here.
Cautioning against mixing and matching COVID-19 vaccine brands, World Health Organization's chief scientist, Soumya Swaminathan, cited limited studies.
We're in a data-free, evidence-free zone as far as a mix and match.
In Canada, hundreds of thousands followed the government's recommendation to mix and match. According to the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI, those who received AstraZeneca for their first dose could safely receive either mRNA vaccines, Pfizer or Moderna, for their second dose. And recently, after a delayed Pfizer shipment, mixing Moderna and Pfizer was also encouraged.
The weighing of risks and benefits was in favor of making sure the population was vaccinated, because COVID-19 in unvaccinated people is a life-threatening disease.
Dr. Joanne Langley adds there is no evidence.
Did I get did I get mixed vaccines? I did not. I got, but not because like I insisted upon it or anything like that. Like I just happened to get Pfizer twice. So there's that. You're not getting a vaccine? Oh, come on. You should get one. It's good for you. You don't want to get COVID-19 and die. That would really suck. Alrighty. You can't get it. Oh, if you're immunocompromised, it's a very different story, obviously. Or if you live in a country where it's not available. Allergy. Aw, dang. Well, then everybody else should get vaccinated so you don't have to. Obviously. Vaccines are good. I'm a pro-vaccine person here. Yeah, stay safe. For real. So let's continue with this news story.
It's to suggest a different second dose is harmful. In the UK, a large study proved AstraZeneca and Pfizer have seen success when mixed, prompting a robust immune response. And while vaccine mixing is common with other types of shots, in terms of mRNA mixing, there have been small studies, but no definitive findings yet. Still, Nova Scotia's top doctor says real-world evidence shows it's safe.
There's clear evidence that it is perfectly fine to intermix between the two types of mRNA vaccines. You get the same end result.
What on earth is the public supposed to do with this message?
Bioethicist Carrie Bowman questions the timing of the WHO's comments, which come a little too late for many Canadians.
The risk benefits are not clear enough because of the mixed messages.
Worried all this will do is erode trust in public health messaging and the vaccine rollout.
The WHO's top scientist actually took to Twitter to clarify her comments. She says not individuals, but rather public health agencies should be deciding on whether people should be mixing and matching vaccines, and those decisions should be based on available data. However, that data is still coming in. Jamie Morocker, Global News, Toronto.
Well, bananas. Well, isn't that fun? I don't know how to interpret that because I thought we were good. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that one. This is so funny because like one of the things I thought was really interesting about that particular video was that you can tell that Global was trying to defend Canada's position of mixing and matching vaccines. And they were trying to be like, what does the WHO knows? Look at all this data or look at all this like evidence. And it's like, it looks like the WHO is just acting out of an abundance of caution. I don't know what their motivation is. I guess it's just that we don't know or whatever. But what do you know? I don't know with liberals being liberals or anything like that. It's just, I mean, mixing and matching vaccines has led to Canada being one of the most vaccinated countries in the world right now. We're going to pass 80% of the country We're going to pass 70% of the country vaccinated soon, I think. Which is a pretty big deal. But yeah, we were desperate and we had very low supply, so I don't see what the problem would have been, but either way. But yeah, the European Union says that not all the European Union is unleashed some stuff about immigration and or sorry, not immigration, like stuff about like people visiting and stuff like that. So immunized but banned. EU says that not all COVID vaccines are made equal, from the AP. So that COVID mutations were not a concern earlier in the pandemic. The WHO has also helped China cover up the initial outbreak. I don't trust them. I think they're corrupt. Interesting. All right. Let's see what we got here. So, EU says not all COVID-19 vaccines are equal. After Dr. Ifeanyi Nsofor and his wife received 2 doses of AstraZeneca's coronavirus vaccine in Nigeria, they assumed they'd be free to travel this summer to a European destination of their choice. They were wrong. The couple and millions of other people vaccinated through a UN-backed effort could find themselves barred from entering many European and other countries because those nations don't recognize the Indian-made version of the vaccine for travel. Although AstraZeneca vaccine produced in Europe has been authorized by the continent's drug regulatory agency, the same shot manufactured in India hasn't been given the green light. EU regulators said that AstraZeneca hasn't completed the necessary paperwork on the Indian factory, including details on its production practices and quality control standards. But some experts describe the EU move as discriminatory and unscientific, pointing out that the World Health Organization has inspected and approved the factory. Health officials say that the situation will not only complicate travel and frustrate fragile economies, but also undermine vaccine confidence by appearing to label some shots substandard. What? The European Union using a very flimsy excuse to not let people from the global south who got vaccines from like the COVAX program? Wow. How nuts. They just so happen to be very slow on trying to accept the one that would allow for tourists from the developing world to come and visit. Isn't that strange? Isn't that just so convenient? Just so weirdly convenient. I don't know. As vaccination coverage rises across Europe and other rich countries, authorities anxious to salvage the summer tourism season are increasingly relaxing coronavirus border restrictions. Earlier this month, the EU announced its digital COVID-19 certificate, which allows EU residents to move freely within the 27-nation bloc as long as they have been vaccinated with one of the 4 standard shots authorized by the European Medicines Agency, have a fresh negative test, or have proof that they've recently recovered from the virus. While some countries remain largely closed to outside visitors, the EU certificate is seen as a potential model for travel in the COVID-19 era and a way to boost economies. The officially EU-endorsed vaccines also include those made by Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson just has a fun new side effect that just came out today, so we'll see where that goes. They didn't include the AstraZeneca shot made in India or any other vaccines used in developing countries, including those manufactured in China and Russia. Isn't that fucking interesting? So China and Russia, the vaccines that they made, those are the ones that those are ungood vaccines, so you can't come into the country. There's something just a little bit like, man, it's just a tad racist in like being like, oh yeah, Chinese doctors, they can't make a good vaccine. Oh God, I don't know what their issue is with the Soyuz one, the Russian vaccine. Is the Russian vaccine sketchy? I don't know. Chinese people don't have enough experience with the coronavirus. Oh God. Yeah. So, individual EU countries are free to apply their own rules for travelers from inside and outside the bloc, and their rules vary wildly, creating further confusion for tourists. Oh man, the EU. EU is so good at not bungling up like red tape and stuff. Several EU countries, including Belgium, Germany, and Switzerland, allow people to enter if they've had non-EU endorsed vaccines. Several others, including France and Italy, don't. For Ensifor, the realization he could be barred as a rude awakening after a tough year working during the pandemic in Abuja. Ensifor and his wife, by the way, I don't speak, I don't even know what language this is. Say it was from Nigeria, but I don't. There's a lot of languages spoken in Nigeria. Ensifor and his wife were looking forward to a European vacation with their 2 young daughters, perhaps admiring the Eiffel Tower in Paris or touring Salzburg in Austria. Ensifor noted that the Indian-made vaccine he received had been authorized by the WHO for emergency use and had been supplied through COVAX, the UN-backed program to provide shots to poor countries of the world. Interesting that they're choosing to go against this one. Do you know some historical background relative to the current situation in Ethiopia? No, not at this point, no. With the stuff with Tigray, I don't really... I saw a Vox video about it, but the stuff that I know about what's going on in Ethiopia is spotty. Sorry. Ivo Valeyev, I'm just going to assume that's how that's pronounced, a professor at Britain's University of Warwick who advises the government on behavioral science during COVID-19, agreed that Western countries' refusal to recognize vaccines in poor countries could fuel mistrust. You don't say. Hey, J-Lord, thank you for the 5 dingoes. Would you agree that some leftists, but not all, are in their fight against sexual content in film and games and have not been proddish as the religious right? No, I would not agree with that. That is a false equivalency that a lot of people will make against, like, you know, pointing out issues in the, like, objectification of people. It's a reactionary backlash. It's not a real thing. All right. Let's see. Where do we go? We're grateful to the EU that they funded COVAX, but now they're essentially discriminating against the vaccine that they actively funded and promoted. Yup. This will not just give room to all kinds of conspiracy theories that the vaccines we're getting in Africa are not as good as the ones that they have given themselves in the West. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. People who are already suspicious of vaccines will become even more suspicious. They could lose trust in public health messages from the government and be less willing to comply with COVID rules. Dr. Mesfin Teklu Tasema, Director of Health of the International Rescue Community, and countries that have declined to recognize vaccines cleared by the WHO are acting against the scientific evidence. Vaccines that have met WHO's standards should be accepted. Otherwise, it looks like an element of racism here. That word element's doing a whole lot of work there, bud. Might just be a teensy bit of racism. They're not accepting the exact same fucking vaccine because it was made in India instead of being made in Britain or whatever. WHO urged countries to recognize all vaccines that it authorized, including 2 Chinese-made ones. Countries that decline to do so are, quote, undermining confidence in life-saving vaccines that have already been shown to be safe and effective, affecting uptake of vaccines and potentially putting billions of people at risk, the UN Health Agency said in a statement this month. In June, the Serum Institute of India's CEO, Adar Poonawalla, tweeted that he was concerned about the vaccinated Indians facing problems traveling to the EU and said that he was raising the problem at the highest levels with regulators and countries. Stefan de Kiersmaker, oh boy, that is a Dutch name, a spokesman for the EU's executive arm, said last week that regulators were obligated to check the production process at the Indian factory. Time for hard questions, yes or no? Yes. Wait, no. Thank you for the $5, Devin. Much appreciated. AstraZeneca said it only recently submitted the paperwork on the Indian factory to the EU Drug Regulatory Agency. It didn't say why it didn't do so earlier, before the agency made its original decision in January. The refusal of some national authorities to recognize vaccines manufactured outside the EU is also frustrating some Europeans immunized elsewhere, including the US. Gerard Araud, I haven't heard that name in a while, a former French ambassador to Israel, the US, and the UN, tweeted this week that France's COVID-19 pass is a, quote, disaster for people vaccinated outside the country. Public health experts warn that countries that decline to recognize vaccines backed by the WHO are complicating global efforts to safely restart travel. You can't just cut off countries from the rest of the world indefinitely, said Dr. Raghib Ali at the University of Cambridge. To exclude some people from certain countries because of the vaccine they've received is wholly inconsistent, because we know that these approved vaccines are extremely protective. And Sofar and his wife are still deciding whether to take their summer vacation and are leaning towards Singapore or East Africa. I realize there are so many layers to vaccine inequity. So yeah. Fun shit. Fun shit. Thanks, European Union. You knocked it out of the park yet again. How do you just keep doing it? You keep winning. So that's fun. Now, I'll get the music back on in a second. But yeah. So vaccine inequity is fun. Things are going real great in general. Yeah, so I'm sure you feel good and happy about how that went down. Next up, we got, now I'm not going to read this whole article because this is like quite an industry insider article, but I wanted to show it to you guys because it is kind of interesting. So this is, oh God, I hate ads so much. There's so many of these. Go away. Okay. So this is a website called oilprice.com. It is a industry news site for people who are involved in the trading of oil. So what's interesting about it is that it is updates on the oil industry from the perspective of people who sell oil professionally. Now, I know that sounds like it's going to be like, shitty and stuff like that, but it's designed for people who are investors in oil specifically. So it tries not to be like, it's not propaganda outlets. Like it's not, I mean, it is a little bit, but like it's not like what they would feed to Fox News, where Fox News, it's like they're just trying to get people to doubt climate change so that they can keep selling oil. But this is actually like people who are invested in oil and have an interest in like the mechanisms of how oil functions in the global economy and what like they can mean for speculators and stuff like that, which is interesting because sometimes they talk about interesting things about how, like, I read an article in oil price late last year that said that it's very likely that peak oil was 2020 and that we might not see, like, the oil consumption might go down from here on out, just because of some like laws that are going on in Europe and the UK, as well as changing consumptions as people's work life changes. So this is interesting. So if you guys remember, we got some more super chats. Thank you for the 7 dingoes. Denmark has been quite tough on immigration, and even I agree there's a historic link between social democracy and racism. Sorry about the typos. It's all right. Yeah, so if you guys remember, last year, there was, it got very overclouded by COVID, because COVID kind of, like, this was a story that was going on in, like, early March of 2020, and then COVID happened and sort of completely subsumed it, which was that in an effort to sort of choke America out of the oil industry, the OPEC and also because OPEC and Russia were having a disagreement because one of their contracts was ending. It led to this. Basically, it led to a bunch of oil-producing countries overflowing the oil economy with extra barrels of oil, to the point where briefly the price of a barrel of oil was actually a negative number for a while. And what this is saying, this article, I read it before the stream started, is that as the economy starts to come back online because of, we're getting to our post-COVID moment, that the OPEC price war that happened could very easily restart, and that we could start seeing some very chaotic oil prices in the near future as we try to figure out what the oil industry is going to do post-COVID. And it means that they're scared. It means that they're worried about stuff. So I think that is always good news. Always happy to see the oil industry freaking out. But it does mean we might see some wacky oil prices again. And it means Alberta's probably not, recovering anytime soon. All right. So that is all the news I collected before the stream. I should have more for future streams. But we're at about an hour, so, about half the stream. So we talked through the news of the day. And I think that, I think you guys had a pretty good time. I think that we had a pretty good time. You think that capitalism exists, or that racism exists out of economic systems? I would say probably. I think racism is tied to the legacy of colonialism, and capitalism is just colonialism evolving into a more and more refined form. So, I don't know. I think that racism is a very easy thing that is used to exploit and hyper-exploit workers, and so it's a useful category for people who like to exploit others' labor. So, I mean, you can't, I think that you can't really get rid of racism without getting rid of capitalism. And social democracy is let's try to have a good country. I think I talked about this in a previous stream. I don't know if you were there, J-Lord, but there was this whole thing that was that was basically a description of social democracy, which is social democrats believe that you can keep the house intact if you just have enough sprinklers and and fire extinguishers around the house, that you can then have an arson machine in your house and everything will be fine. While socialists are maybe we should turn off the arson machine. That's about it. Social democrats seem to think that you can not have your house catch fire if you just put enough nice bells and whistles in it, but you still refuse to turn off the machine that is designed to set the house on fire. Hey, thank you for the $2 super chat, John Barlich. What do I think about Kyle's old tweets? Kyle Kalinske? I've only ever heard about it. I don't actually know anything about it. Racism started after Bacon's Rebellion, where indentured Europeans and enslaved Africans teamed up against the elites, but they lost it. Then the elites created the racial caste system. Yup. Classic move. It's a reason why any class-based workers movement that does not make space for all of the people who are oppressed in our society, LGBTQ plus people, racial minorities, religious minorities, sexual minorities, gender minorities, every single type of oppressed group, if you do not make common cause and alliance with them, if you do not treat them as human beings, if you do not accept them and treat them as you would yourself, then you are destined to fail, because the working class today, those people are oppressed, and they are oppressed in very real terms, in that money is part of the equation, and those people there's a reason why they always talk about how in general these people who are oppressed make less money for various systematic oppressions. But that also means that the working class, the poorest of the world, are people of color, they're queer people, they're women, they're they're disabled people. These are the people. That is the working class. And so like a lot of this like stupid like bullshit about like kind of like the anti-woke left type people who try to say that like, oh, we need the left but with racial slurs and that's how we're going to succeed, are kind of thinking with an outdated notion of what the working class is. The working class is gig workers, service workers, and such. Didn't racism exist in ancient times? The thing is, like, not really. There's like a real like there's been studies about like where did racism come from? Where did it develop? And like there is especially amongst the capitalist class, there is an interest in trying to say that racism is baked into human nature, that it is just part of our tribalism, that we're always going to have to confront and we're always going to have to fight all the time. When like you can actually tell that it developed in the like 17th century, in the like Atlantic, what's called the transatlantic world, or the Creole world, or whatever you want to call it, whatever like historian word you want to use for it. And it basically was developing as Portuguese slave capturers kidnapped slaves and sort of built up this triangular trade network, importing people from Africa to be used as slaves. And basically, as that continued to happen, as that started to become an economic engine that ran this, like, for the first time, like, really large global trade network, especially in the production of cash crops, which are very labor intensive, eventually they found that it was like this was the best way to have the highest amount of exploitation of people. Because you could just take a group of people who look a certain way and then say, oh, those people are going to be property. And you can tell who they are because they've got different physical features. Their skin is a different color. So you can just say that those ones are the ones that are going to be kept as a servile class. And yeah. And the thing about, if you want to go with like understanding how society works, is that our culture, our norms, our hierarchies in society are sort of a emergent outcropping of trying to justify the way that our economic relations work. And so we developed what we would call today racism as a sort of superstructure of culture over top of the relations of keeping people of color as a servant class. So, yeah. Remember I said I worried about how my dad, some guy at air rifle forum, was dog whistling. He's a boomer. My dad managed to achieve all the stuff the white man wants. Does being conventionally successful make it harder and easier for the alt-right to recruit you? I think it makes it easier for you to be a passive supporter, but it's not going to make you a devotante, if you will. We won't get rid of it if we just get rid of capitalist systems. It would be easier, though. It would be a lot easier, and I'm obviously this would be like in the long run. If you got rid of capitalism tomorrow, racism would not disappear with it immediately. No, it would take several generations because superstructure develops slowly and organically. It's kind of hard to change, like intentionally change the way that our culture works, because our culture is sort of an emergent phenomenon of the economic relations of production. So while, like, if we got rid of capitalism tomorrow, we would still need to make active efforts to correct for racism and other forms of bigotry. But it would be, it would not have the same energy sort of reinforcing it in order to keep a class of people that you can economically exploit even harder, like we do now. Hope that makes sense. How would a post-capitalist world deal with racism? Well, it would depend upon what form. Like, racism shows itself in multiple different forms. But the main thing would be that in a post-capitalist society, people would not be paid more than the others. So economic inequalities would be eradicated. So you wouldn't have these sort of like generational and systemic poverty that comes with capitalism. Like a lot of the wealth gap that comes with that happens especially in America, but because of all white supremacist countries, the institutional inequality comes from the fact that people of color were left out of a lot of the main commodities that are used to turn into assets. Like the main one in America is housing, right? Like housing very quickly has moved away from being a thing you buy so that you can live in it, and has moved more into a sort of like an investment, like a stock option. It's a money making asset, and because of discriminatory mortgage practices and things like that, somebody was able to build a house or was able to buy a house for super cheap that then, appreciated a whole bunch in value. They were able to have a lot of economic, because they had more opportunities in employment. They were able to provide more economic stability for their children, and then they were able to give them inheritances of their houses so that that kind of wealth can reproduce itself generation upon generation. And people of color, because of like discriminatory practices through that whole line, we're not able to do that to the point where black generational wealth is actually declining, and that by 2050 the net wealth of black Americans will be $0. Very disturbing. So if you got rid of capitalism tomorrow, nobody would be wealthy because they own a house, because houses would not have the housing market would not be a thing. So stocks wouldn't be a thing. Your bank account would probably, they would equalize all that out. And so nobody would have more or less money than each other, or an income that's higher or lower than each other. And so then what else do you do in that situation to try and fight for inequality or fight against inequalities? It's about, land redistribution, asset redistribution, resource redistribution, which is just making sure that, everybody gets the stuff they need. Why would a socialist society need to deal with racism? Would total economic equality not slowly eliminate it? True. Total economic equality would erode because all of the mechanisms, all of the sort of incentives that keep racism going would be gone. And the incentives towards that kind of thinking would disappear. And so people would not, the lines of thinking would not go in that direction. But it would still, the thing about, if you study Marx, you would know that there's that sounded so fucking conceited. Sorry. What I meant to say is that when you study Marx and you study superstructure and base, you know that superstructure, the sort of ideologies and justifications, religion, culture, emphasis, all those kinds of things that's built to reinforce the relations of the economic hierarchies in our society, evolves and changes slower than the actual way that our economy functions. You can tell this today because our means of production, the way that we make things, becomes as the technologies that we use to produce all of the commodities that we have changes at the speed of technology, and the superstructure has been slow to keep up. The reason why millennials are complaining so much, the reason why baby boomers are complaining about us so much is because we have we still have a social structure that is based around a very outdated idea of how the economy works, but the economy keeps functioning. And it usually requires big, dramatic moments to have changes in that really take place. Like COVID might serve as one where we might get rid of like I'm not saying these are good things, by the way. This is just like the superstructure might evolve so that as our more digitized workplace that is so atomized and doesn't have like, straight up firms and offices and stuff as much anymore, we'll start to shift towards essentially nobody really being employed as much as being like, gig economy, independent contractors. A true hell, a new phase of capitalism that will be just terrible. But yeah. So what I'm saying is, even if we got rid of capitalism tomorrow, while, yeah, the incentives for like racist and tribalist thinking would go away, it doesn't mean that it would go away overnight, because we still have, hauntological, like old concepts about how the world should work and what our hierarchies are that are from a previous age. And we would need to actively mitigate those from impacting people's lives. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, like you would get rid of a lot of the material inequalities of, and like also keep in mind like things like how if everybody had like material equality of work, like right, like everybody would get paid the same amount, would have the same amount of money, would not have assets or anything like that. The other thing too is that in that case, if some individual asshole is racist, then like it doesn't really fucking matter anymore if like somebody's an asshole. So even like the impact of things like implicit biases and like stuff like that would have less of a actual physical, tangible, edible impact for the people who would be subjected to it. So not saying it would be completely harmless, but it would defang a lot of like our implicit biases about people if like, say, it didn't really matter whether or not you got that, like you had to have a job in order to get healthcare or to be able to afford rent or whatever, right? Like you take away a lot of its sting if the economic aspect goes away. Then it's about dealing with violence and discrimination and things like that, and that's a longer process, but it is something that there are things you can mitigate. Hopefully what I said made sense. I plan on making a video about sort of how our politics, our culture, what our culture values, are the hierarchies within our society, and the things, the classes, the castes that we build about who has power and who doesn't, are sort of like emergent effects of the economic system we live under. Would decks from after the revolution eliminate the need for sign language? Like deaf people could just project text into each other's visual field? That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, probably. But also sign language is not like people who are in the deaf community have built like quite like their own like culture and syntax and stuff out of sign language. So I don't think it would truly go away. It might become more like artisan or whatever. But like deaf culture and sign language, like sign language has developed very much into its own thing, and so there's definitely something there. Alrighty, I got two more questions. I got two questions from my pile. What will probably be the quickest change to city infrastructure planning and zoning under anarchist or socialist control? My guess is that the main thing is, if you look at the Soviet Union and that kind of like, I also think not ignoring intersectional issues that exist outside of class is also needed. We can't expect economic or political changes to rid all of the racism and tribalism. Yeah, I know. that change in superstructure is going to be because we have to work at it. We have to understand it. It's not like it's not like think like what's it called? Superstructural changes can be hopelessly out of date and cause a lot of stress and anxiety and can cause a lot of oppression and stuff like that. And so still understanding cultural issues and understanding intersectional approaches and realizing that people walk different identities in life is still important stuff to talk about and still important for advancing the cause of social justice, especially if you're trying to make life better for people under capitalism. Like under capitalism, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, discrimination against people with disabilities, all of that is ways that we still find ways to exploit people even harder than than people with privilege can that you can get away with people with privilege. And so I'm trying to intersect all of it and say that like it's all complex. But yeah, back to this question about urban planning. I think one of the cool things you would see, and it's probably close to what you saw about the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had some very interesting urban planning issues, or interesting urban planning stuff. So first of all, housing would completely change. Because right now, okay. Let's talk a little bit about commodity fetishism for a bit. Commodity fetishism is when an object loses its original purpose in service of capitalism, right? Like, and the best example is houses. I keep going back to houses because I bought a house a few months ago, so I have to like constantly be thinking about it. But people don't buy houses most people who buy houses now don't buy them to live in. They don't buy houses for the purposes of what they're supposed to be for, which is to be shelter for people to live in. Instead, people buy houses because they are investment assets. They buy them with the purpose of making money. So that's interesting. What does that mean? That means that the purposes of housing, a physical structure that we are building, is no longer to be a place for people to live in, but a place to make people money. And that the things that it emphasizes are designed to maximize on their value potential, which means that that you're at these two contradictory things. You have to make them as nice as possible for the purposes of being purchased, or they have to be made as cheap as possible. And what does that result in? It results in a situation right now where we have way more houses than there are people, and or way more houses than we have people to live in them, but people can't afford them. And at the same time, there's this rash of building cheap houses out of shitty material because they're designed to be just sold really fast. So there's so many houses. Like, for example, look at that that condo building in Florida that just collapsed. That's a sign, and we're going to see a lot more stuff like that as buildings that were designed to be really cheap and quick to build, so that you could, get more housing, so that you could rent it out. That is going to catch up with people quite a bit. That's why I love the fact that I live in 100-year-old house, because I know that it was kind of before that got so bad. But if you realize when you go to a restaurant, the restaurant's purpose is not to make people fed and to give them food. The purpose is to make money. And that's why the food is not designed to be, it's designed to be as tasty and hit all of the addictive parts of your brain so that you want to come back for more, and at a price that you can afford, because its purpose is not to nourish you. Its purpose is not to feed you. Its purpose is to make you money. So it being healthy, it being sustainably sourced, it being nourishing, having vitamins and minerals and calories and stuff, is secondary to it being something that you want to buy. Thank you for the $2 super chat, April. Earn a living equal pay to live. Yeah, you shouldn't have to pay to live. So, yeah. Salt, fat, and sugar. Yeah, exactly. And so, so let's get back to the topic at hand, at Orange Man's question. So, what would be the biggest changes to infrastructure and planning? Is that first of all, things would probably be designed a lot more often for their purpose. Like one example that comes to mind is that in the Soviet Union, they did not have to deal with with school budgetary cutbacks in the same way. But like one of the things they did is they planned their things. They planned their neighborhoods around what would work best for the people living in them to get to all the things that they needed without having to worry about stuff. So in the Soviet Union, you had like these large apartment blocks, because they always talk about how like, oh, the Soviet Union, everything was so gray and depressing. So you just had these identical apartment blocks. But the thing is that everybody had a home is the thing. And also everybody lived within walking distance of a school and a grocery store and usually their place of employment, so that they either didn't have to commute very much at all, or they could get there pretty easily with like public transit. They built subway systems, which are not very profitable, but they are very human centered things. So I can expect like in a socialist or anarchist city, a lot more things like subways, a lot more like smaller, more distributed schools, housing that is designed for people to live in rather than being like maximally profitable assets and stuff like that. And yeah, cultural buildings for sure. Like what's it called? You want an example of interesting example of commodity fetishism? Have you guys ever heard of the ice cream museum? I heard about it this morning, and I thought it was really interesting. Does anyone know the ice cream museum? I'm waiting for the chat to catch up. Anyways, the ice cream museum is supposedly supposed to be a museum of ice cream, right? You'd think that's what it was. But what apparently the ice cream museum is that it doesn't have very much in like the history of ice cream. It doesn't really have like a whole lot of like ice cream based content. But what it does have is a lot of very aesthetic things for Instagram. Why? Because the purpose of the ice cream museum is not to have everybody share their love of ice cream. It's to make money. And so they know that they get a lot of their traffic by people taking pictures of themselves in the ice cream museum and putting it on Instagram. And so their material incentive to stay in business and keep making profit is to maximize its value as a commodity for Facebook to make money off of, so that they can make money. And there are other places like that all over the place that are like who hasn't been now to like a restaurant where or seen like the phenomenon of like food that's completely fucking inedible, but because they wanted to make something that looks good for Instagram, like the unicorn hamburger, or like the like milkshake with like 16 donuts on top, and like the hamburger that's like just completely covered in cheese, like the like all that shit. It's because the reason this was made was not to make good food. It was to make food that they could then people would take pictures of, so that Facebook could get money and that they could get money by people going to their store. It's so sad. Recently decided that I believe it should be unconditional for people to hold office unless they are at least social democrats. How do you think that'd go horribly wrong? They'd be unconditional? I'm not sure what you mean by unconditional. Do you mean unconstitutional? I mean, I'm not against that. I mean, it's if you are, I would say that believing in capitalism is a in a civilized like society that cares about its people, any form of belief in capitalism should be considered like absolutely morally abhorrent. The only reason we don't think that it's absolutely terrible is because we're just raised in it. Like, I think that if, like, 100 years from now, if we're still around and we have gotten rid of capitalism, we're going to look back at the way that we, like, used to treat people under capitalism and recoil in fucking horror because of, like, how just absolutely, like, how utterly exploitative and how unfair and unjust an ideology it is. So I would say that I don't know, think that it, I don't think it, I think it doesn't go too far. It doesn't go far enough. I would say that democratic socialists, or that social democrats are too far to the right. So there's that. Let's see. Did you hear that the U.S. has legalized the torture of autistic and other disabled people by electroshock? Yes, I got a DM about it earlier today from somebody who wanted me to talk about it. It's a thing I'll probably do some research on for next week. Here, I'll I'll put it on for the next step back tonight for 201.07.20. No, yeah, because like the hashtag stop the shock, right? That's what it's called. I'll make a note. I don't like talking about shit when I don't like everybody here knows me well enough to know that I don't like covering stuff that I haven't done research on. So I'll look into it and I'll do some research and I'll talk about it next week. Isn't the categorization of working class just a broad categorization? I mean, how can we create a whole movement based on it, but at the same time, those who are in it have contradictory positions? What prevents movements like ethnic socialism and Christian socialism forming? Well, in many ways, I think that this is where identity politics actually does have a lot of use. Is that because the working class is oppressed in so many different myriad ways, and we a lot of our exploitation is in various different ways and different flavors and degrees, that building coherent identities around shared forms of exploitation as sort of like a way to push everybody's well-being forward by having a broad intersectional class-based but also respectful of liberationary movements, that you can do that. Does urban planning have to do with food deserts and people's access to nutritional choices? Partially, yeah. And I mean, if you like, that's an example of capitalism showing itself in sort of like city planning, because yeah, people who don't have money aren't profitable to grocery store owners, because grocery stores are not designed to feed people; they're designed to make money. It's commodity fetishism. To a grocery store, food is not getting people the calories and vitamins and minerals they need to live. It's a way to make money. If they gave me the ability to rewrite the UK's constitution, but I can abolish capitalism, I'd do that. I'd make it so you can't hold public office if you don't believe services should be state-run. All right. How do we plan for that, though? I absolutely agree. We have a Department of Food Distribution. Yeah. Kinda. You, what's it called? Yeah. Essentially it. This makes me sound like I'm turning into a tanky. I swear I'm not. I like freedom of speech. I love freedom of choice and freedom of conscience. I'm still an anarchist. I just have read, I just also am very socialist. In regards to residential schools in Canada, have you heard about the mum and baby homes and Magdalene laundries in Ireland? No, I haven't. How about street food? Street food's great. My grandma's a tanky, damn. Alrighty. What's the second question we got here? As you are in an area surrounded by 3 Great Lakes, do you have to worry about flooding now or in the future? I mean, I live in a city with a... I live like 3 blocks away from a river, so I already have to worry about flooding. So, that's my answer. Can you preserve liberal democracy by just banning conservatism? I mean, no, obviously. But I think that, yeah, it's kind of like top down, you know, like that's a superstructural type approach that doesn't change the structure. So it's like you're putting the cart before the horse, really. Like you probably shouldn't ban conservative parties, because if you affect the material conditions of people's lives the right way and make it so that people don't feel threatened by economic precarity and all of the ideologies that are based upon that, you won't need to ban them because they'll become irrelevant. New to your content, but loving it so far. Well, thank you, Katie. That's much appreciated. Yeah, there's been a bunch of new people finding the channel lately, and it's been absolutely wild. But I'm really glad that you're enjoying the stuff. I'm glad that YouTube finally decided to show you my stuff. But other than that, that's everything I got for my notes. Just got another 25 minutes. What do you guys want to do? Just talk to you guys in the chat, or... Go see what kind of questions I got in the old question hole. See what my question submission... The Great Lakes are more at risk of drying up than flooding the surrounding areas. Yeah, that's true. I think the closest Great Lake I live to is Lake Erie. And Lake Erie is still pretty far away. Like, I think it takes like 20 minutes to get to Lake Erie from where I am. So what's more of a problem is going to be issues with the river, the Thames. Why do you think that YouTube lets you show up in the algorithm? Because my videos get attention, and attention means money. They don't want to, share my vision with the world. They want to make money, and my videos make money. And if my videos were really a threat to the order, like a real serious threat, they'd probably take them down. But, I try. All right. And someone just asked if I have a Discord. I do have a Discord, so I'm going to get that to you. Here's a Discord invite in the chat there. Best socialist or anarchist books? The best books, I always think... So, like, it depends upon how academic you want to be. The best books for understanding why capitalism and to understand, like, kind of like why capitalism is bullshit, and at the same time also look at it with anarchist principles, I would say is David Graeber's 2 big books, which is Debt the First 5,000 Years and Bullshit Jobs. They are accessible, they're funny, and they're interesting ways of understanding how, not only how capitalism, but also like hierarchies in our emotion and like people's emotional needs to feel dominant over others is like the behind a lot of like absolute nonsense in our society. And so there's that. I would also recommend the Bread Book. The Bread Book is like almost like poetry to understand like, you know, the aspects of nature that we don't typically think of. Like even the idea that we have like a fairly communist or fairly capitalist idea of how evolution works, and like how in nature a lot of like, you know, mutual aid and stuff like that is pretty common. And if you look at like eusocial insects and stuff like that, is like one of the most successful evolutionary strategies. So very cool. Lots of cool stuff in the Bread Book, in Kropotkin's work, but specifically the Bread Book. Found you through your Vietnam and militia movement series. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Almost 1K. Wubba lubba dub dub. Wubba lubba dub dub. No, that was the worst. That was the worst Rick ever done. You guys never heard that. That never happened. I would need like what's it called? Need to like drink some ginger ale or something to do a. I've been talking for almost an hour and 40 minutes without stop. So my throat is getting pretty sore. Yeah, almost to 100K. I'm at 96,549 subscribers right this moment. So crazy. I hit like 96K like last night. So it's like 500 subscribers today. Bananas. You claim to be an anarchist, but you wear the emblem of a billionaire in your chest. Curious. Yeah. Great Lakes don't flood, more like Great Fakes. They don't flood as much as they actually, the sea level, the level goes down in the summer. We're more likely to have the lakes start to dry up than like flood. I don't think you should get the vote for a party that kill people through neglect. Dad, oh dear. I feel capitalism actually depends on anarchist communist structures to live, no? Yeah. Debt the First 5,000 Years basically talks about that. And I talk about it a little bit in my video, How Capitalism Makes You Lonely. That essentially our society functions on what's called primitive communism, which is just like the communism of like everyday life. Like, if I ask somebody to if we're fixing something together and I need a wrench and you're right by it and I say, hey, can you pass me that wrench? You don't charge me for it. That's like, when we're in small groups, we generally try to be egalitarian and split things evenly. That is the communism of everyday life. And if anything, capitalism is trying to take all of that primitive communism and twist it and turn it into turn more and more of those kinds of exchanges into capitalist exchanges where money is exchanged. And like, as we do so, our society is getting less functional. Did you come across the article on Big Think revolving around a scientist talking about U.S. holding futuristic patents, essentially UFO style stuff? No. That's kind of interesting. Is the Thames navigable up to London, Ontario? I mean, I don't know where else it goes. But yeah, it like runs right to the middle of the city. I know the Soviet Union made mistakes, but we should not distance ourselves from them. When we do that, we're conceding the rights framing. Yeah, I made a whole video about the Soviet Union, and like, there's a lot to learn from the Soviet Union. I think there's a lot to learn in what we should, and also to learn about what we shouldn't do. There's, the Soviet Union was the Russian Revolution was, over 100 years ago in a very different context than we are now. And like, there were some very bad things that happened. There were some very good things that happened, or things that were a lot better than they were. And so, it's not like I am not a person who likes to idolize or besmirch the Soviet Union. I think about it in more complex terms. Because we can't because very often there are people who will we can never criticize the Soviet Union. Who are those Ukrainians that died? Don't worry about it. Nothing happened. What happened in Hungary? Don't worry about it. What happened at Kronstadt? Don't worry about it. What happened to the Ukrainian Black Army? Don't worry about it. And like that stuff is gross. But also the victims of communism narrative is just pure propaganda, and it's full of shit. And in Eastern Europe is being used to try and rehabilitate Nazis. So like literal Nazis. It's like, fuck that shit. Suppose there was a superhero going around the world using deadly force to get us to stop doing climate change. Would you be okay with that? Rick and Morty just did a Captain Planet parody. Yeah. What the hell was her name? Planetina? It ended with the Captain Planet analog using her powers to do stuff like firebombing mining operations. The implied question, would you really stop climate change at this cost? And I'm thinking, at this point, maybe. I don't think you need to be killing miners, but definitely like blowing up oil silos and like in Minecraft, obviously. Blowing up oil rigs and you know, stopping coal power plants. Like, yeah, that would be morally justified to do in Minecraft, in the fictional game of Minecraft, or Roblox. The last Rick and Morty episode was really fucking weird. Yeah, it was. The sperm thing, I was so freaked out. I have no idea what that episode, like, it was nuts. My planned economy related to Wally World video is a complete banger. What was that? I don't remember making that. I know I say bananas a lot. Did you get my message? I think I did. Found you from a retweet. YouTube never shows left content on my homepage. Oh no. The last time I went to the monkey forest before the pandemic, it was kind of shocked they told me the leader of the troop was just decided by whatever male is most popular. Like before when I assumed they must fight for dominance, yeah. It's not. Wait, there's a city in Ontario called London with a river called the Thames going through it? Yes, there is. Is Canada still making that Victims of Communism monument? Yes, they are. And they're like now like way over budget and have taken like way longer than they're supposed to. I do like that idea. Like there was this great TikTok video of somebody in Ottawa who was filming it and was like, "Look at this Victims of Communism manual or this monument, this Victims of Communism monument. It costs like millions and millions of dollars, and they've been making it for so long. No better use of the money for that." And then it was like right next to it, he's like, "Oh look, a homeless person." It's like, oh god. We can criticize the Soviet Union with supporters that we were criticizing them from the left, and criticize them from the right. Yeah. Wally World. Oh wait, Wally World. Do I have a TikTok? I do. I don't very often use it. I only post very occasionally, but I do have a TikTok. I think it's like Tristan.Johnson64. Let me check. Yeah, just no dot, just Tristan Johnson 64. That's my TikTok handle. I only post on it occasionally. Would you like to confirm or deny recent rumors that you saying bananas is a secret dog whistle for your love of the Banana Republic? Oh boy. Yo, there's nothing in Banana Republic that could actually feed me, or that could fit me. You know that. Are they talking about the Walmart Plant a Comedy video? Maybe. That video, I was proud of that series. Kind of covering the People's Republic of Walmart stuff. In 2100, will they add the name of all the Eaton CEOs to the monument? Hope so. Who are some of your anarchist influences? Well, I like Kropotkin for having this sort of like biological, scientific, empathy-based understanding of anarchism. But I gotta say, I don't know, if you look here, my number one anarchist influence is, let me see if I can like lift the tripod a little bit. There we go. Literally have a framed picture of Emma Goldman in my office because she is basically my idol. I wish to be like Emma, so that's my answer all the time. Emma Goldman's story was like a lot of like politics, especially left politics, has got a lot of like, it's theory and it feels like very like grim and serious And Emma Goldman showed that, like, you know, the personal is political, and like activism through acts of joy and love are just as important as are important, you know. Emma Goldman was an anarchist in everything, in politics and in love and in life, and I really respect her for that. I saw a TikTok referring to the Forbes 500 as a menu. That's fucking baller. I love that. I'd like to learn more about Emma Goldman book suggestions. I made a video about Emma Goldman last year. Shocked to Life 561. Let me get you a link. Because it's like one of the videos I'm most proud of. And I'm pretty sure it's actually the longest step back video. So, there you go. Enjoy my 46-minute magnum opus on Emma Goldman. It's not a book, though. I would read her books. She has a 2-part autobiography called Living My Life. That's really good. Where were they going to go with that bit where the miners said you didn't get the votes? Like, is it that we stop climate change or we can't circumvent the consent machine of Democratic support? Get Democratic support. I think it was just a reference to, like, politician. I don't know if it was specific about any specific politician or anything. Do you consider yourself an anarchist? If not, why not? I do consider myself an anarchist. Yes. Anarcho-communist. Rosa Luxemburg is also pretty good. My Disillusionment in Russia and Further Disillusionment in Russia, yeah. Have you done any readings in the digital humanities? Oh, Cassinidity. I was a PhD student who was going to do my dissertation in the digital humanities. So I was very, very into the digital humanities. I was part of the first digital history lab in my department. And I went to DHSI, which is, or not DHSI, the Digital Humanities Summer thing. I went to that a couple times at Guelph University. And I was the digital research assistant of the history department for a year, where it was I was paid, like, my job was to help people do digital stuff for their things. And like my supervisor had like a room full of 3D printers and shit. It was a really great, it was a really good time. Digital history is amazing stuff, and it is super cool. I was doing like a machine learning project before I dropped out. Any chance on a video on Rosa Luxemburg? Yeah, I don't see why not. I'm sure that's one I probably should do. I'm like not very good at like. I'll only just go into Notion right now and put it in there. Projects. There we go. Done. What are my thoughts on the progressive YouTube show, The Young Turks? I know they've gone through a bunch of weird shit lately, but they're fine. Like they're not like what's it called? Cenk Uyghur's got a bunch of shit wrong with them, and the Young Turks seems to pump out a bunch of shitty people. Like they're the people who made Dave Rubin. They're the people who made Jimmy Dore. They're the people who made There's another shitty person they made that I can't remember the name of right now. They have a habit of making a lot of shitty people, and their politics are fine, but they're usually like kind of like only half to where only half, like it's still half measures, half chubs of ideas. So, his nephew Hassan is rad. Yeah, he seems pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, probably don't name your media company after movements that participated in genocide. That is true. Like, I know that when he started it, he didn't know that. That's probably, I think, why they go by TYT now. They were called the Young Turks because my guess is that through Cenk Uyghur's mind, if you're an Armenian genocide denier, then you think of the Young Turks as like the people who like secularized and modernized Turkey out of the Ottoman period. But have I played Disco Elysium? No, I have not. It's on my list of games to play, but and I bought it, but I haven't played it. I have a very hard time getting the time to play video games that I can't like listen to podcasts while playing at the same time. Did you know all the black players on the England team are getting the blame for us losing? Oh no, man! Is there any way England doesn't suck? They can't even lose right. I'm so happy Italy won. Fuck England. I don't give a shit. I actually don't care about Italy. I just wanted England to lose. I said that yesterday, so you already know that. Oh, boy. Fucking... Of course, English fucking sports fans couldn't just, like, lose gracefully. They had to be dicks about it. The entire EU has that sentiment of fuck England. I mean, the entire world should at this point. There's like barely a scrap of land on Earth that they haven't invaded. Have you ever played factory games like Factorio? I just got the game called Dyson Sphere Program and it's addicting. I've seen Dyson Sphere Program. I've been tempted to try it, but I haven't gotten it yet. I do have Factorio. I've played it like once, and I thought I was going to like it a lot more than I ended up doing so, because every time I was trying to think through all of the industrial puzzles, my shit would I just get overrun by aliens, and I was like, how do I turn the aliens off? Did you know that Italian football culture has a massive neo-Nazi program? Like the fans make monkey noise at black players. No, I did not know that, but that sucks. I couldn't enjoy England losing even. Thanks. Do I play Paradox games a lot? Yeah, I can. I go through phases. I like Stellaris and CK3 the most. Do I watch Jim Steffley Sterling? Yeah. Like half-heartedly. Like I'm not super into video game content. Like I don't watch any of the I only really watch the Jimquisition, and I really only watch if the topic of it is interesting to me. Like there was one today that was like about the Wii, or it came out yesterday about the Wii, and I didn't watch that because like I don't really care. Do you plan to try the game Humankind? Is that like it's like it's kind of like Civilization, but it's not made by the people who made Civilization, so it's like Civilization made by fans of Civilization. I've seen a little bit of it. I don't know if I'm gonna play it. I might end up grabbing it if it's on sale or something, but yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna. The video game I'm playing right now is actually Mass Effect 2, so just to show how far behind on video games I am. So I'm, yeah, doing that. Yeah. I do. One of the funniest things about Mass Effect 2 is that they quickly established in the first game that like ammo's not really an issue anymore. That basically all guns have unlimited ammo. So in order to have ammo be a thing in the game, they made like ammo being these like portable heat sinks, and I was just like, this is such like a hacky way to try and force ammo to be a thing in this game, because Mass Effect 2 is obviously a lot more of a first-person shooter than Mass Effect 1 is, so it's like, oh, okay, it's just like, really, really stretched on that one, but here you go. After hearing yours and Mia's rants about Victoria games, you and kind seem similar as far as shaping culture and doing more than war. Yeah, the thing is like, isn't, if humankind is going to be like civilization, isn't it? It's less like a simulation and more like a board game, right? All the guns in Mass Effect are rail guns. They're microscopic bits of metal. Yeah, something like that. But it was just like, yeah. What is it about South America that makes it so prone to political conflict? Easy. America, this country called the United States of America has a policy that they think that they can, they can fuck with Latin American politics or South American politics unlimited with no consequences. So it's considered de facto territory of the United States, and the United States fucks with their politics whenever they want. That's why. It's the CIA. If they were to get rid of this one nasty organization called the Central Intelligence Agency, Latin American politics would be a lot better. Well, there's your problem. Like, look, they elected Evo Morales, an indigenous leader, for a long time. He was president for a long time, kept winning, really beloved by his people, pushed a progressive agenda, and people were really happy with him. And then the CIA showed up and were like, no, we got to get that lithium to Elon Musk, and so we're going to overthrow you with a fucking fascist dictator for a year. And then luckily she lost too. I'm one of the few people who still watched both 2IT and Jimmy Dore criticism of time. Jimmy Dore is still better than corporate mainstream media. I mean, maybe. Corporate mainstream media doesn't actively make friends with Nazis. That's the part that I'm a little on. Anyways, it's 9 o'clock. We are ready to ramp down this show. All right. I'm gonna okay, for our raid tonight. Here's what's gonna happen. I have a real life friend who is having a bit of a hard time because of some stuff at work. I'm not going to go into detail, but he's, you know, he implied kind of like on Discord that he's not having a great time these days. So if we could all give him a nice raid and be really nice to him, that would make me, I'd be very happy. So let's go raid my buddy Dimitri and show him some step back love. Other than that, everybody, this has been a real ride. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll be back on Monday. Have a good one.